This is Target Score Weekly with Joey Slattery and Taylor Allen. Welcome into another episode of Target Score Weekly, the playoff edition, with the Winnipeg CEBL in Calgary taking on the Surge in the first round of the playoffs, the play-in round. I'm Joey Slattery. With me is Taylor Allen. And Taylor, it's going to be a rough go for the CEBL if they hope to make a run, because they have to win a lot of games on the road, and they've won one this entire season.
Yeah, 1-9 on the road this season for the Winnipeg CEBL. I mean, at home, right? There's been many times, going to a home game, you watch this team and they fool you, right? Like you watch them play at home, you're like, wow, like I think this team is capable of going on a big run. Like this team, I don't know, like some they got something working here, despite all the craziness that's happened this year. And then you watch them play on the road, and oftentimes it's like they just look like a completely different team at times. So even though that last game they played at Edmonton the other night, the game meant nothing in the standings, but it was a road game, and I think that if they could have won that, just to kind of change the narrative a little bit, like because two is twice as much as one, right? I think that would have been a nice little boost to them, but of course they dropped that one as well. They have a nice comeback at the end there, but they lose that one too. So yeah, I don't know. I think they're capable of winning this play-in game in Calgary, but again, we spoke about this last week. For the CEBL to be the 2024 CEBL championship, they're gonna have to win, or champions. They're gonna have to win 4 games outside of their building in a row. And again, this is a team that's only won 1 game out of 10 outside their building this year. So sadly, Joey, I think next week when we're talking, there's a good chance that we will be doing a season recap and not previewing the next game. So
Yeah, I mean, it can be done. Scarborough won a championship last year in this very same situation. Difference is the year before they were also in the finals, and I believe their road record was much better than 1-9. To add, maybe a little bit of optimism, Calgary only 5-4 at home this year, but 2 of those wins coming against Winnipeg. They're 2-0 against Winnipeg at home, so definitely there's a chance. It's not like this is not going to work out, 100%. In fact, I know there's players in Edmonton that I've spoken with that aren't even convinced that Winnipeg won't be their opponent on the Sunday. So if they win on Friday against Calgary, they would then move over to Edmonton for the Sunday game. And Edmonton is not giving them a pass that it's going to be Calgary or whatever the case may be. So there are teams that are seeing some potential and have seen not only the potential, but seen it in action with the CEBL in spurts, and, Edmonton playing them at home. It's just a matter of not even the effort. I mean, the game against Calgary, the last road game, was well played. They just couldn't close. And it's this, we're close and I'm like what I'm seeing. And, there's progression in certain areas, but at the end of the day, there's no more moral victories. They actually have to go there and win, or it is done. Adding to that, no David Muenkat. And David Muenkat has been a huge player off the bench for the CEBL this year. I mean, he was electric in terms of what he was able to do on the court with the highlight reel dunks and, getting people excited. A guy that can deflate the other team with one play. But beyond his offensive abilities, I mean, defensively, this guy's been great too, especially as of late. I mean, big rebounds in target time, some key blocks. I mean, and when we say key blocks, also highlight reel blocks. We talk enough about his dunks, but his blocks, he's got a few on the highlight reel as well. But now they don't have that, right? Emmanuel Acott is expected to be in the lineup. He was practicing in the last practice ahead of travel. That would have been on Wednesday. So that's a huge boost. But is it enough without David Muenkat in the lineup?
I am a big fan of David Muenkat's game, but there's also been games where he's kind of been invincible, right? Like he's the most athletic player on the court, but there's been games where like he hasn't really made an impact like whatsoever. So yeah, that's a loss, of course, right? But I think getting Emmanuel Acott back would be a bigger deal than losing David Muenkat, because I mean, maybe I'm the president of the Emmanuel Acott fan club. I don't know, but I think he's been a top 3 player on this team. Like he does it all for this team, and especially at the end of games, like he's been really clutch, like defensively, offensively as well. So I think that's the exact type of guy that they're going to need to kind of win some gritty games on the road and whatnot. But I mean, you mentioned that last time they played Calgary in Calgary, that was July 25th. They lose 87-83, And Justin Wright-Foreman, their main scorer, their go-to guy, he only shot 4 for 18 for 15 points. Like probably his worst game as a Sea Bear, and they only lose by 4 points. And Scotty Lindsay, I mean, that's a guy that was brought here to shoot, right, and to score, and he was 3 for 10 for 8 points. So if not two of their most important scorers, had terrible games, and they lost by 4 on the road. So uh, that doesn't necessarily mean if they shoot better, they're going to win this time. But I mean, that just goes to show, like, hey, you've been in that building, you played far from your A game, and you almost beat them. So I mean, that would help their confidence a little bit, at least, even though they are 1-9 on the road this year.
Difference is it's the playoffs, right? And you ask any player, that is a new leaf. Whatever you've done in the regular season means nothing. Even if they were playing at home and their great home record, it means nothing in these one game scenarios. And it is just one game. You can't look at Edmonton, you can't look at championship weekend. You got to look at this being the end all be all for this team. And then if you win that, you've got to just do it again, right? Like, it's not a matter of, we got to improve on the road. It's no, we just got to win a game. Doesn't matter where it's played. If we can win that game, we have good confidence moving into the next one. And I've said this before too. If they can win this one game on the road, sparks a little bit of confidence, a little bit of momentum. And this is a team that we've seen, not statistically, but in terms of the schedule and the standings, the trends, they trend and they can string wins together. We've seen it. It was, the 4-win streak, and then they had a couple of games here at home before they went on the road to Calgary, but they also string together losses. Doesn't matter. One loss, you're out. But if you can string together 4 wins, which you've done before, all of a sudden, this is a whole new conversation a few weeks from now where we're still talking Sea Bears basketball and potentially a championship. So can you get over that mental hurdle? And I think it's easier said than done. I mean, I talked to a few players yesterday. Jared Ongabemi-Jackson, shares that. They all know the road record. They understand that this is the playoffs and it's a whole new, season essentially, and it's just one game. They're very familiar with Calgary. They've gone 1-1 with them in the last week. They won here in Winnipeg, and then they lost on the road in Calgary at Winsport Arena. So this is not a team they're unfamiliar with. They've played them a lot recently. So you've got plenty of tape. You know exactly what went well and what didn't go well, and what cost you the game on the road, and what got you the win at home, and how are you able to flip it now and make that a win on the road. Now, looking at Calgary, they've gotten really strong as the season went on. They look like they're clicking, but they're coming off the last 3 games. They're 1-2. One win against against Winnipeg, and then they lost the next game against Scarborough. So, I mean, this is a team that isn't exactly rolling in recently with all this success, and Winnipeg pushed them to the brink in Calgary. So there's reason to believe, but they've got a really, really good team, right? And we've seen this before. They're big, they're physical, their guards are massive, right? I mean, you look at Ruggsy Miller-Moore.
Good Canadian guards.
Great Canadian guards. And Ruggsy Miller-Moore is a guy who looks like he could be a linebacker, like a running back. He's just got this, big frame on him. He's 210 pounds. Steph Smith, another guy, their leading scorer who comes off the bench, unbelievable. He can shoot the ball. He can drive the ball. And then you got Jordy Shimunga, who can cause a whole lot of issues, especially with this team now, with basically just Chad and I believe Noah Starkey's back, but I haven't got an official update on that. But he was away last game for personal reasons, which Mike Taylor said was for his engagement. And he said he was hopeful that he'd be back on Friday. We'll see. He wasn't at practice yesterday. So if he's there with Chad, it helps a little bit. But Jordy Shimunga is a problem inside. And really, so is Ruggsy Miller-Moore. He's a guy that stirs the drink. I know Steph Smith is their leading scorer, but the ball goes through Ruggsy. He gets that offense moving. And when he decides to put his head down and drive to the paint, it's a real problem. And, that's where you get these situations where we've seen them struggle with their help side defense and their switches. So for me, actually, let's get into it. For the keys of the game, we have 3 keys each. I'll start with mine because my first one is just containing Ruggsy Miller-Moore at half court. If you can make sure that he's got pressure on him and he's not able to move, and it's going to take him a lot more effort just to get through the perimeter into the paint, it's going to make things a lot easier. And if you can lock him up, because he can also score as well. I mean, he's a guy that can make those little bump fade shots. He can set up his teammates. He attracts a lot of attention. I think if you can get to him early and maybe pressure that offense early in the full court press just to set a tone, And to make sure that you're putting the pressure on them and keep them from any kind of transition, you're good. But for me, it starts with Ruggsy Miller-Moore. What's your first one?
My first one, it's going to sound a little stupid, but if I'm a Seabears fan, I do not want to see Justin Wright-Foreman scoring 40 points. This team needs to be a little more balanced. He can't be doing it all by himself. You watch that last game in Edmonton, right? Yeah, he shot the ball well from three and whatever, but some of those shots he took towards the end of the game, it's like, what are you doing, man? Like, there's still time on the clock. Like, you guys got to have a better offensive play than this, than him just kind of chucking up a prayer from deep with a hand in his face, right? To win in the playoffs, he can't do it by himself, right? Like, they need 3, 4 guys in double figures. So if Justin Wright-Foreman is scoring high 30s, into the 40s, like, I don't think that's really going to be a good thing for this team. And with Justin Wright-Foreman, I mean, he scores the ball very well, obviously, but he also turns it over quite a bit as well. That the last target time in Edmonton, he had at least 2 really costly, kind of boneheaded turnovers, and he had 7 on the night. So yes, everyone's talking about, wow, he was only 2 points shy of Teddy Allen's franchise record and whatever. He had 7 turnovers.
Yeah.
Right? 7. Your point guard. If your point guard has 7 turnovers, I don't care how many points they scored. That is not a good game. Mm-hmm. So Justin Wright-Foreman, let's see a nice, if I'm a Seabears fan, I want to see a nice, 25 piece from him, right? But a nice 10 assists, like getting the team involved and taking care of the basketball, especially in target time and the couple minutes in the fourth quarter and just overall, obviously. But yeah, him taking care of the basketball, him passing the basketball, that'd be my first key to the game.
And that leads into my second one is ball protection. I mean, 18 turnovers last game, and they've been, consistently high in the teens into the 20s when it comes to turnovers this season. And, it doesn't come down to one particular player. Of course, 6 or 7 turnovers, whatever it is, for Justin Wright-Foreman doesn't help. But I mean, we've seen some costly turnovers, particularly late. Even Jared Ogunbemi-Jackson, who's a great point guard, there's been a few games where he has 1 or 2 turnovers in target time, right? That can turn the game around. Some have cost, some have not. And he's not the only one either. So this team has to do a better job of protecting the ball. I mean, you look at last game, for instance, the starting lineup alone had 8 turnovers. 8 turnovers for the starting lineup. Jared Ogunbemi-Jackson had 4 turnovers off the bench. Simon Hildebrand had a couple. But yeah, the turnovers are going to be huge. If you can protect the ball, if you're going to get those stops, which we've seen they can do when needed, but too many times, I think this year, Taylor, we've seen they get the stop, they go the other way, and it's like weird turnovers, like they slip, right? Or they just lose the handle, or, thinking too much, trying to do 2 things at once, right? Like just caught in between decision making. So protecting the ball and just being clear with your decision making and your ball movement, knowing where the ball is going to go and following that pass. But if you cannot protect the ball, you can't even get into your offense. So taking care of the ball is going to be huge.
Yeah, no, I like that one for sure. My second one is let Jared cook. Jared Ogunbemi-Jackson, he played for the Calgary Dinos, right? He's going back to his old stomping grounds. And when they did play in Calgary last, I think he had 18 points off the bench. Like, he had a really good game, shot the ball really well. So he's comfortable playing in Calgary, right? He's going to have lots of, former university teammates, coaches, I'm sure, in the crowd, watching him and whatnot. Let the guy cook, man. Play this guy down the stretch. I've been pulling my hair out, as you can see, by watching this team and the lack of minutes that Jared's been getting. Right? Like, I understand Justin Wright-Foreman's the guy on the team. He's a point guard and whatever, and they brought Scotty Lindsey in, another strong American guard too. But let Jared cook, man. Like, he's a veteran. He's played overseas for nearly 10 years. He's played in big games. This a play-in game in the West Division of the CEBL playoffs, like that ain't nothing to this guy, right? So let this guy be a veteran, get him out there, and just kind of calm some nerves, or especially with some of these young guys on the team. So let Jared have a big role in this game and see what he can do. And I think good things will happen.
And my third key, and to add to your point, actually, before I get to my third key, Jared Ogunbemi-Jackson had 18 points, 7 for 9 from the field in that one. And he was, 4 for 6 from 2, and he was 3 for 3 from the 3-point line. So, Jared Ogunbemi-Jackson, if he gets going, I think this is the kind of game where you just got to ride it. There's no more figuring things out. If you have hot hands, you leave him on the floor no matter how it looks. If it's working, let it work. So that's a great point. And to add to that a little bit, going back to Muenkat being gone, rebounding. They've had games where they've been great. I look back at the 32 offensive rebounds they had in the second last home game of the season. I believe that was against the Rattlers. They have to have another game like that. They have to rebound as a team because we know their field goal percentage could be a little bit wild. Justin Wright-Foreman puts up volume shots. They have to make sure they're in position. This team in Calgary is too good and too big to take any kind of chances. Stefan Ingo has been unbelievable. I actually would like to see him play a little bit more, especially if that game gets a little rough. I mean, we talked about Chad Posthumous, Noah Starkey, and Emmanuel Aycott, but we've not even mentioned Stefan Ingo, who's been a huge impact player here in the last quarter of this season. So guys like him are really going to have to step up and make sure that they're grabbing down those boards, because the other end of that is not only defensively, you got to make sure that you're getting the defensive boards, but Calgary was hot shooting that first game. They didn't have a lot of offensive rebounds because there weren't that many opportunities for them. They were just hitting their shots. Winnipeg doesn't get as hot. They are a little bit more streaky. They miss more shots. Rebounding is going to be huge, which goes into a sub point. Get to the free throw line. You got to start drawing fouls. Excuse me. They had 10 foul shot attempts against Calgary last time they played Calgary. Calgary had 20. They were 16 for 20. That is the difference. They were 9 for 10, but they have to start drawing fouls for two reasons. Put some pressure on Tyrell Vernon to make sure that he's got to go into his bench and start protecting guys to get them in foul trouble, and then get to the line. Once you get those 5 fouls, it's automatic foul shots. So when you're rebounding and playing tough, those are where you're going to draw those rebounds, especially if you get those second chance points offensively. And if you can get to the free throw line, get a few more points there, and put some pressure on them in terms of foul trouble, that is going to be key as well.
My last key, I'm going with player themes here. I'm picking on certain guys and whatever, in good ways and bad ways. But my last key is Scotty Lindsay and Simon Hildebrandt need to show up. So Simon only has 7 points in these past 2 games combined, and he's playing around 20 minutes a night. And yeah, I know he's not the focal point on offense and whatever, but he gets some looks, right? He shoots the ball, and when he's on, right? Like, he's a big guy, like to stretch the floor and whatever, but when he's off, he can be pretty off as well. And that's the exact same thing you say about Scotty Lindsay. Again, this was a guy who was brought here to be, the guy could stand the corner and stretch the floor and knock down threes, and he's had some really poor shooting performances, but also some really good ones as well. So if both of those guys, have an off shooting night, I mean, that's not going to really help Justin Wright-Foreman and Jared and whatnot. So those 2 guys, if they can be on, contribute on offense, help this team be more balanced on offense, that's going to be huge. So those are another 2 guys that I'm really interested to see how they play.
Yeah, and Simon Hildebrandt, a finalist for the developmental player of the year. They've changed the title. It is the one that he won last year as the U Sports Player of the Year, but now that they've added the CCAA, the college realm, the Canadian College Athletics Association, they've changed the name to developmental, and he's a finalist for that. Maybe that's some inspiration, a little bit of a boost going into this playoff game. Justin Wright-Foreman, a finalist again for the CEBL MVP. He lost it to Teddy Allen last year. He's now been a finalist with 2 years in a row with 2 different teams. He's up against Tajay Moore, who I think it's hard to argue against his year this year with Vancouver and what he's led them to, a bye to the conference finals. So I think he's in tight for that one. But the fact that he's named a finalist is great. And I think that's the motivation. Another thing, Taylor, this is Justin Wright-Foreman's first ever playoff game as a professional. He's never played in a playoff game in his professional career. The last time he played would have been the tournament, like the NCAA March Madness tournament with Hofstra. So here's a guy who is going to be motivated, going to be focused. I was talking to him yesterday too, and the one thing he said is he's leaning on guys, like Chad Posthumous, guys that have been here before in this league, to kind of what to expect when it comes to playoffs. And, a guy like Chad particularly, who's won championships and has been upset in the first round at home, he's kind of seen it all. And this is an opportunity for him to really cement himself. It's something he's not been able to do, as great as his career's been so far. I think that is something that has not followed him, but, very well could. And it's a chance for him to be like, you think my game is great? Well, look at me when the pressure's on and the playoffs are here. Will he elevate his game? I don't know. We've never seen him in this situation. But I believe it's going to be added motivation for a guy who's not going to take this for granted. He knows how hard it is to make it to a playoff playoffs in any pro league, and I don't think he'll be taking this one for granted. And like I say, you just have to win 4 games. I know that sounds weird to say for a team that's not won on the road, but when you really break it down, you played 20 games, you've won 4 before. Now you just got to do it on the road, and you can flip the whole script on this season, right? And maybe all this adversity and everything they went through on the road is just what they needed to build at this time. I mean, they've gone through roster changes. So even losing David Muenkat, as tough as it is, right? And you said there's times where he wasn't as effective. You've been through this before. You know what it's like to lose a guy. Even last year, you lost EJ Anasike going into the playoffs. This feels similar to that. So this is a team that has really seen it all this year. They have. Like, if you're going to go into a playoffs with the experience that they have, you have to have a little bit of confidence, even as a fan. Those come from behind wins at home. Being down at target time, against Vancouver by 12 points, who is the best team in this league. And they were not playing terrible. It wasn't their best game, but that's large in part to how Winnipeg played them, especially in target time. So there are a lot of things you can build on, a lot of positives, but there's that one glaring negative, and it's the road record. And it's just so glaring, and it kind of overshadows all the good that they've done, all of what they've overcome this year. Losing Teddy Allen, losing Byron Mullins, who didn't play to the standard that people were expecting, including the organization, right? Had to make that tough decision, and you still manage your way into the playoffs. And we've said this before. You and I both said this. Once you get in there, everything changes, right? That's a big weight off your shoulders. You're there. Now this is where it counts. And you said, this is not a team that is going to be happy with making the playoffs. It's a relief that they're there. But this is not a team that was built to make the playoffs and lose on the road in the play-in round. This is a team that came in with championship expectations, a team that came in on paper as arguably the best team on paper preseason. I think most people would have had them at least in the top 3 in their power rankings in the CEBL. So now you can actually prove those right after a tumultuous season. And when I say that, it was full of ups and downs, right? It was a turbulent season, we'll say, where you hit turbulence and everything looked bad and the plane was going to crash. And then suddenly it hits some smooth skies and starts rising and then back down. But guess what? You're still in line with the playoffs. You still have the championship weekend in sight, but it all starts Friday against Calgary. We don't have a guest today, Taylor. Should we go to the draft?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Time for the second edition of the draft. All right. So today we've got, it's the Olympics, right? And everybody's watching men's basketball team playing great out there right now in Paris. I'm so excited. Women's team, tough, lost a couple of games. I actually have the France-Nigeria game right now, and France about to do Canada a huge favor. They're still alive. I've been watching 3-on-3 basketball, but I'm in that spirit right now of the Olympics and Team Canada. So we're going to go with the draft the top Canadian athletes, any sport. I'll give you the first pick, Taylor.
Of all time.
Yeah.
Make that clear. And before we get into it, I would like to say I have a bit of a beef with you with how our first draft went. Because we said, like, we're always going to post the results, right, and put it on our social media, on our Instagram or whatever for everyone to vote on it. But you put it on your personal account. You didn't put it on the Target Score Weekly account. So of course, all the fine folks of Timmins, Ontario, they're going to vote for your team, right? They're not going to vote for me or Darren Bombing. So you had a whole province, right, in your back pocket. So I think you did that on purpose. I think you purposely put it on your account, your personal account, not the podcast account. Texted all your cousins, your aunts, your mailman from back home, and everyone, and got the votes you needed to win. So I am vetoing the first result from our first draft was greatest sports rivalries, and I think it doesn't count. There's an asterisk next to it, and we're starting from scratch today.
You know what? Maybe we've got to send this for review, but I won, and that will never change. I will forever be the first winner of the Target Score Weekly Draft. You can never take that away from me, no matter how hard you try, including a guy who cheated himself in the draft by not telling us that sports entertainment was allowed, and then puts out the rock stone cold in the top 5. So you know what? We're gonna run with it. I'll admit that if I did do that, I thought I did do it with both. I thought I collaborated it, but maybe I didn't. And I'm also getting used to this Instagram. We didn't have an Instagram account for a long time. I was posting a lot of it on my personal account. So if it's there, I'll wear it. But now we're back to even ground. This is round 2 or draft number 2, all Canadian athletes, and you have a chance to bounce back here, Taylor.
I do.
Give the people what they want. I'm even giving you an advantage with the first overall pick.
Yes, this really is a gift because I think this pick right here will do it for me. And are we doing there's only 2 of us. We're still snake drafting? Or is that going to get
Yeah, we'll snake draft.
Yeah, okay. Well...
Or no, we'll go 1, 2, like just back and forth. Back and forth.
Okay. It'll get confusing if we snake it. But with the first overall pick, not only is this the greatest Canadian athlete of all time, in my opinion, I think this might be the greatest Canadian of all time. Terry Fox.
Okay. It's funny, I thought Terry Fox, and that's I'll give it that for sure. Okay.
I know he was an Olympian or whatever professional athlete, but I mean he was a runner. He's a marathon runner. That's a sport, and the impact he had on the world and you know everything he did for cancer and raising money and whatever is way bigger than any Stanley Cup or gold medal, world championship, whatever. So I think if there's a Mount Rushmore of Canadian athletes, you can argue the other 3, all day, but Terry Fox would have to be on there. So Terry Fox, first overall pick.
That's a good one. I'm actually going to go with a Manitoban with my first overall pick again. All-around athlete and someone who's had a lot of success, not only in the Winter Olympics, but the Summer Olympics as well. Obviously, I'm going with my first choice, Clara Hughes.
Yeah, that's not what I wanted to hear. I was really hoping she would slide to me in round 2. I mean, she's a very deserving first overall or second overall pick.
You know how hard it is to think about it. How many people get to the Olympics ever in any sport, but to do it in both winter and summer and win in both? It's crazy.
Yeah, insane.
Crazy. It's to me that's a no-brainer. So I got Clara Hughes as my number 1 overall pick.
Nice, good pick. The pride of Elmwood, for those that don't know, Clara Hughes. Yeah, and everything she's done for mental health and everything. Yeah, Clara Hughes is fantastic. And actually, during COVID, quick little side story. During COVID, there was also no sports to write about, like when it was first starting. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, man, what am I going to write about? So I came up with this idea to do this, and it was in March, I believe. And I came up with this idea to do a March Madness style bracket to determine who Manitoba's greatest athlete is of all time. So I broke it down into 4 regions. I had Olympians in one region, Jets in another, Bombers in another, and I guess the other one, I think, was just whatever else was left. Other pro athletes like Corey Koski, Tom McCulloch, and etc. Nice. And anyways, Clara Hughes, obviously she won the whole thing. So yeah, that's a fantastic pick. And bonus points for Matt Tobin as well. So
yeah, Corey Koski was huge too. When the time he was playing there, I remember Koski being a huge deal when he was playing, especially with the Blue Jays when he came to Canada. That was insane. But I feel his name didn't carry as I thought it would. But obviously one of probably the greatest Manitoban baseball player of all time. So
yeah, absolutely.
All right,
speaking of the greatest of all time, the greatest hockey player to ever lace up a pair of skates, the great one himself, Wayne Gretzky. I mean, come on. All the Stanley Cups, the scoring records, whatever. I mean, to this day, you ask anyone who's the greatest hockey player of all time, I'd say 9 out of 10 people are going to say Wayne Gretzky. So,
you would pick an Edmonton Oiler. The Winnipeg fans are just going to be so happy with you. Leaving Clara Hughes off the board, going with an Oiler. Man.
Had to be done. He's the great one. Had to be done.
Okay. Well, you know what? I'm going to go on, we are a basketball show. I'm going to go with the greatest Canadian basketball player of all time. The one, the only 2-time MVP, Steve Nash, who had a wonderful run with the Mavericks, the Suns. We'll forget the Lakers. That was nothing. But 2-time NBA MVP, some of the most exciting teams. I mean, him and Dirk in Dallas, and then you had the Amari Stoudemire and Marion combo in Phoenix. And he was the straw that stirred the drink, and he was tough, man. I'll never forget when he had, the cut lip or whatever, and then he goes, I think he might have lost a tooth in a game, and then he comes back in and everybody was losing their minds at hockey mentality. And the crazy thing is, apparently he's just as good at soccer. So, all-around athlete.
how could you pick a guy who in the back half of his career refused to play for the Canadian national team? Refused.
Hey, he was the only jersey you could buy the last time they were in the Olympics in 2000.
Whoa. Don't slander Rowan Barrett and Todd McCulloch like that. Come on.
I'm not lying, man. I remember back in the day, I was in Toronto, and to me, those were the coolest Team Canada ones. They had like a number, like in a little circle kind of thing. It looked pretty cool. But Steve Nash was the only one that you could buy. And this year, I've noticed the Team Canada, no players at Foot Locker, just the blank jersey.
Really?
Yeah. Wow. So, yeah. But no, I'll take that.
Okay. Well, I can't let you have all the Manitobans. And this Manitoban had one of the most dominant Olympic performances of all time, 2006 in Torino, with 5 medals in speed skating, and she won another medal as well in her career. So she's a 6-time Olympic medalist, Cindy Clausen. When you have a rec complex named after you, I mean, come on, It doesn't get any better than that. So Cindy Clausen joining Team Taylor.
I left that one out there for you because I just couldn't go back-to-back speed skaters, but that is a very worthy pick. My third pick overall, going to go with the youngest Olympic champion ever. And I think the only Canadian to win, I think it was 4 medals in 1 Summer Games, Penny Alexiak. I mean, that's someone who's a newer generation, more recent with her success, and really just captivated the country when she was doing her thing, especially in the last Olympics, where she just really peaked. So Penny Alexiak for me. I know Summer McIntosh is the new, the new one we're kind of looking at and kind of the future of swimming. But Penny Alexiak really set the bar there at such a young age. Brother plays in the NHL, obviously an athletic family, but what she was able to accomplish at such a young age makes me question a lot about my own life choices and accomplishments.
Yeah, that's fair. My next pick, I can't believe in the 4th round, the greatest international soccer goal scorer is still available. So I got to go, and I know there's some controversy surrounding this team and program right now, but hey, whatever. Christine Sinclair, one of the greatest Canadian soccer players, one of the greatest soccer players of all time. She brought our Canadian soccer program from nothing to world class, and Christine Sinclair. And fingers crossed that they get to keep their Olympic gold medal, because that's apparently under review right now, and that would be heartbreaking for all of us.
Yeah, until they win this one, and it won't matter anyway. They're on fire. I think this whole the 6 points demerit, and then it being what's the word I'm looking for? They went to have it reviewed, and they said, nope, it stays. And they've now won 2 in a row. They made it to the quarterfinals. I think this lit another fire. What's that?
They've won 3 in a row.
3 in a row, sorry. I think this lit a fire under them that is even more motivating than defending your title. I think defending a medal or a championship is the hardest thing to do. The mentality totally changes when you go from chasing to everybody chasing you. But when you have something like this and you respond the way that you did, they're not playing to defend this medal because they might not even have it, as you said, with this whole review. But they are playing to prove everybody wrong and say, like, you know what, take your drone footage, whatever. We're just going to go out and win this one, even though you gave us the ultimate, obstacle to get over. That's 2 wins. So they had to win 2 to get to 0. And then they had to win again to get in. So props to this team, man. I really hope that they do it. And I think they are going to do it. There's something special happening with those players that have brought them closer together because of all this. And it'll be scary to think of what they're going to be able to do. With the 4th pick of the 2nd Target Score Weekly Draft, I select the greatest woman hockey player of all time, Hayley Wickenheiser, who also played professionally in a men's league and owns so many records and had the most badass post-game interview in the 2002 Olympics, where she caught wind that the Americans were stepping on the Canadian flag and they beat them for the gold medal. I have no problem, and I'm shocked that it's this low, but hey, we have a lot of great athletes. They can't all be number 1.
It's true. Yeah, that's a damn good pick for sure. These are all good picks. We have, there's, and honestly, we could probably make a 3rd and 4th team of all-time great Canadian athletes. I mean, like, I have a list of I'm staring at a list of like over 10 right now. I'm just like, wow, like there's so many different directions we could go. But yeah, Wick, legend for sure. And the impassioned speech she made, you know, when they were playing the US and they stepped on our flag and whatever. That's one of the greatest moments in Canadian hockey history. So yeah, Wick's the GOAT for sure. I think it's the last round. Yeah, the fifth and final pick. Oh man, like I said, lots of different places I could take this. But when you are a UFC champion and you defend your title 9 times, I mean, come on. One of the greatest fighters of all time, never mind Canadian fighters, just one of the greatest UFC fighters of all time, greatest champions of all time, George Rush St. Pierre. This guy was an absolute monster on the mat. Wasn't always the most exciting guy to watch because he would just like out wrestle someone for 5 rounds and make them tired, and his cardio was insane. But yeah, this guy was the biggest badass in the UFC during his time. So yeah, GSP. That's my last pick.
I was worried. I thought you were going to have my pick last, but I almost went lacrosse with Gary Gait, who's probably the greatest lacrosse player in modern history. They had rules changed because of this guy, but I'm going to go with George Chuvalo.
Oh, that's a great pick.
Canadian boxer who went the distance not once, but twice with Muhammad Ali. He lost both, but to go the distance with him was great, and he has a lot of accolades. I mean, he was a Canadian heavyweight champion forever. He's been challenged for the world heavyweight title a couple of times. And boxing is not our strong suit in Canada. We don't have a lot in terms of boxers that have really hit international spotlight, and he did it at a time when boxing was at its peak. Like, we're talking some of the best boxers of all time, and he was up against all of them, challenging for world championships and going the distance with Muhammad Ali, and I think it was 5-time Canadian champion, boxing champion. So I have no problem giving my final pick to George Chuvalo. With that, we're going to post it on the Instagram account for Target Score Weekly. If you're not following, it is at Target Score WPG. Give it a follow. You can give it your votes. Taylor and I will both put it on our personal accounts, so all his cousins out in Elmwood and where else do you have family? Maybe Morden. They can all get on board and give you your support. But give it in your vote. We'll post it after the episode is released, maybe a day after. Give it some time for people to see it or listen to it, and then we'll give you the results on Instagram. Maybe coming out of the weekend. We'll figure it out. Just keep an eye on it. You'll get the alert if you follow us and get the notifications. But that'll conclude our draft. So I think I won 2 straight this week. We'll soon find out.
Well, let's recap. What's your 5 again?
Oh, I didn't even write them down. I had Clara Hughes.
Yeah, I'll buy you time here.
No, I got it. It's on my mind. I had Clara Hughes, Steve Nash, Penny Alexiak, Haley Wickenheiser, and George Chuvalo. There we go.
Okay. By the way, Muhammad Ali has been quoted as saying George Chuvalo was his toughest opponent. So my 5 is much better than yours. So I wanted to help make it a fair fight. So I just figured I'd mention that as well. So yeah, that was a good last pick. But my starting 5, very, very happy with who I got. Terry Fox, Wayne Gretzky, Cindy Clausen, Christine Sinclair, and George St. Pierre. And if you look at the names that we forgot, like there's still some good ones out there. Alphonso Davies, Brett Pittman Hart, of course, right? That guy could have been the first round pick. Mike Weir won a Masters. Larry Walker, Ferguson Jenkins. Like there's a lot of good names.
Ferguson Jenkins was up there for me too. I'm a big baseball guy and I like Fergie Jenkins, but we only had 5 picks, man. That's what I mean.
Yeah,
could have went.
Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, right? After they win gold in Paris.
I'll say with Shea, he's going to be in that conversation, but I'm not going to put him in there yet. He's got some years to just enjoy playing. But I think we have this in 5 years from now. That's definitely part of the conversation, especially if he gets an NBA championship and a gold medal. Any medal, not even a gold. They get into the medal rounds, Canada basketball. I mean, that's going to be insane. So yeah, I definitely think that will be something down the road. But I might win 2 in a row, but it's all about 1 for the Winnipeg CEBLs. They've got a game on Friday at 7:30 Central Time. There's actually a viewing party at Finn McCool's on Grant. I'm going to be there with Emily Potter doing the post-game show live from there. It'll be streaming live from Finn's. Could be very ecstatic and hard to do a show if they win, but it could also be very quiet and maybe a little awkward if they lose. They've not won a Western Conference game on the road at all this year. They've only won one total against Brampton early in the season. Everything that happened in the regular season does not matter. Playoffs start Friday. If they win that one, they will move on to the conference quarterfinals in Edmonton against the Stingers. They are awaiting the winner of this one with a bye to the quarterfinals. Any final thoughts on that, Taylor?
Final thoughts are good luck because they're going to need it. But with that said, my prediction is I think they're going to win this one in Calgary, and then we'll fall to the Stingers. But yeah, it's been a weird season, man. I just don't think it's in the cards for this team to pull off the miracle and go the distance. But we'll see. It's been unpredictable every single week, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, that's my prediction. But yeah, we'll see how this 1-9 team. Did we mention that, by the way? I don't think we did.
Yeah.
How this team that went 1-9 on the road. We'll see how they do on the road moving forward.
I think there's a potential as the underdog in this one to pull off an upset. I think this team is talented enough to do it. Before the season, I included, had them well above Calgary. So this is a team that matches up with Calgary. They do have their challenges, but if they can, plan something to take away those strengths and exploit their own, get out in transition, they could put Calgary in the dust and they could move on to Edmonton. Short trip to Edmonton, 2 days later, quick bus ride, maybe 2.5, 3 hours down the road or up the road to Edmonton. I think that works favorably as well. I don't want to get too far ahead, but there would be 2 games done before we would have our next episode. So if they are to win this one, which I think they can do, don't count them out against Edmonton. You get that one win on the road against a good Calgary team. The confidence will be high. There's not a lot of time before you have to get to the next game, but enough time to rest, get that turnaround, carry that momentum against a team that hasn't played since they played on, Sunday? I think it's 7 days or 9 days between their last game and this game. That said, when they played at Winnipeg, they looked rested, not rusted, but that was their first game in 9 days, and now they have another big break before this next game. So I am not counting Winnipeg out if they can get past Calgary. I think there's a good chance if they get through game 1, they have a fair shot to get to championship weekend. But it will not be easy. It's a slate of road games. We're going to have the coverage throughout the playoffs here on Target Score Weekly. Of course, you can watch all the games on CEBL Plus, and all the games are going to be on TSN on TV. Taylor, another great show. We'll talk to you next week, buddy.
You bet, man. Take care, guys.
Thank you for listening to the Target Score Weekly podcast. To stay up to date with Winnipeg Sea Bears and CEBL news, as well as future episode releases, follow Joey and Taylor on Twitter and Instagram at TaylorAllen31 and at Joey Slattery TV. And wherever you're getting the podcast, be sure to subscribe to never miss an episode.